We build houses with all kinds of comfort and beauty, incorporating places for relaxation, to retreat alone with our family, with our friends, to get away from it all for a while. We look for that heightened experience or that new product to make us feel everything really is okay, perhaps it's even good, or at least for a while this new thing dulls the pain of what is not okay and good. We join churches, hoping to experience once again the belonging we desperately seek, where everyone gets along, love prevails, and life is good and wonderful, God is present and real, and we can feel good about ourselves and everyone else. We sing and we pray to our Maker, lead us home to the garden, bring us back to where we belong, help us to find ourselves experiencing our original blessedness. But neither the spa, nor the home we create as our haven, neither the newly found experience or product, nor even the church, brings us back fully to the belonging, the connectedness, the original blessedness for which we desperately long. And we want to blame someone else when we can't make our way back to the garden. The problem is, once you leave the garden, even though you can return, it is never, ever the same again when you go back. Some of you may remember leaving home, the home of your youth, and returning with new eyes, new understanding, new awareness, and somehow, even though it's still home, the place where your identity was formed and shaped, the place where you're always welcome, the place where you feel a sense of belonging, somehow it just doesn't seem quite the same anymore. Some of you remember, or perhaps are experiencing right now, your child leaving home for kindergarten or college or adventures even further out into the world, and when they come home after the first day or the first year or the first job, somehow they are different too. Once we leave the garden, we're not the same when we return. We come back to the garden with new understanding, more worldly wise. We know what's out there. We have had a few or maybe a lot of bumps and bruises, and we have the scars to prove it. We go back to the garden, but something has changed. Things are seen differently. We have new awareness of who we are, new awareness of who the other is. We're more discerning and insightful with our greater knowledge of good and evil. We can return to the garden, but we cannot return with our former naivete. In our journeys outside the garden, we've experienced happiness, passion, excitement, and we've experienced pain, suffering, and evil. We've discovered reality which cannot be denied anymore, pretending that it just isn't there. We can no longer shield ourselves living in passive bliss, hiding forever in the garden, hoping God or someone else will take care of us. For once we leave the garden, experiencing the realities of life full force, we learn something of God's call on our lives. And our experiences prepare us for our responsibilities as partners with God, co-creators in the ongoing creative work in the world. We realize now, outside the garden, the divine placed within us back in the garden from the very beginning, the divine remaining within us as we wandered in the world outside the garden, the divine within us even now as we try to make our journey back, the divine of our Maker in whose image we are, requires something of us. Living outside the garden, we lost our naivete. We understand now life in the garden doesn't just happen anymore. This blessedness we so desperately long for won't just be given to us. With our newfound knowledge of good and evil, we have a more fully informed understanding of the blessedness and connection for which we seek. The meaning of life in the garden has taken on new dimensions at far deeper levels. We can come back to the garden, and we come back clearer about who we are, more certain of our place in the world, more fully understanding our human identity created in the divine image to be partners with God, taking on our God-given responsibilities to care for one another, for the earth, for all that is. The garden was a lovely place, really. The woman and the man could enjoy extraordinary beauty, living in mutual, respectful equality with each other, in harmonious connection with all that is. Our desire to return to the garden is deep. Our souls long to rediscover the blessedness of rich communion with God, with each other, with all that is. Our search for the garden may lead us to the church, the community of the living Christ, hoping to satisfy this longing for real connection, our deep need for true belonging, the ongoing search for genuine communion with Spirit, with sisters and brothers, again with all that is. But now, our naivete is gone. We know gardens don't just happen. Genuine relationship isn't just handed to us. Authentic community goes far beyond simply being together. We've come to realize living in genuine relationship is work, a lot of work, of enjoying all that is good and creative and taking on the tough stuff of correcting the damaging and the destructive. Our original naivete has given way to the necessity of letting go of illusions and pretense that all is well when it is not. We've learned being community is about loving support and care, and also about loving, responsible accountability to one another, as we experience deeply the power and wholeness of the divine within us. The garden was a lovely place, really, and now we understand that we still can have the garden, but now it's up to us to do the work of planting and tending. Amen.